did you have any fears and anxieties, going through this journey?
Oh
Maybe
my
one
God.
tell us one story about your fears and anxiety. I feel like
Oh my God. Man, there's so many. There's so many. There's just a lot of these aha moments. I can, okay, I'll say two pivotal moments that kind of made me stop in my tracks.
all right, Chad, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you here. And Chad, tell us about yourself. What do you do?
Okay, my name's Chad Hopson. I am a graphic designer. Um, Now I like to go more of just as a creative or designer, but a graphic designer by trade. I've been doing graphic design for 10 plus years. We'll just say that.
I see a lot of your artwork in the background there. They look amazing.
Yeah. So I have my little Overwatch canvases that I have here,
Mhm.
just sewing different characters. Um, that's basically kind of what started So Indifferent, which So Indifferent's my brand. That's what I go by. And I have the pages and artwork from my kids' book that I've been working on, just finished up. And behind me is my I don't call it a vision board, but I love Porsches. So I have that up there as like just a point of reference to hopefully one day be able to be blessed with owning a Porsche. But I'm grateful with my Honda Civic right now. So
I've just come to a very sad realization last week, and I told my wife this is that I will probably never own a sports car.
uh, I'd be happy and content if I was just able to sit in one. That's it.
The other day, I met you and picked up some pieces of your art. And I'm going to actually put it up like right here. Um,
Oh, dope, dope.
uh, the the when I went back to the car, I was like, oh man, I'm driving a dad car, so no more sports car. But it's great that you have a vision board.
Uh,
As an entrepreneur, I think our what we want to do is have financial freedom and live the life that we want. But for you, looking
mhm.
backwards, how have your journey been like being a entrepreneur, small business owner, but also a person of color? Like, what has your journey been like getting to this point?
Oh my God. I oof. It's been, you know what, it's been a rocky journey. There's been a lot of ups and downs, but I feel like all of those roadblocks act as they make for a better storyline. I've been blessed looking at it now. Kind of when you're going through, you kind of don't know how blessed you are, but looking back now, I think I've been blessed and highly favored to have been able to achieve and do some of the things I wanted to do with my life. I can honestly look back and say I've aside from owning a Porsche, I've done a lot of the things that I wanted to do and that I aspired to do as a child. And I'm beyond blessed and fortunate to have been able to have the tenacity and have the drive to go after those things. So, but it's been fun. There's been a lot of ups and downs, but I wouldn't trade it for anything else in the world. And I go back and do it all over again.
I absolutely agree. I think once in a while, I go back and watch Steve Jobs' commencement speech. And one of the things that I've always stuck with me, and the reason why I watch it once in a while, is to remind myself that you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. And I think being more reflective and being more grateful of the things that you know we've both gone through some adversity. We've both seen some dark days. Um, makes it so much more fulfilling, being where we both are in this point in our life. And I think I know a bit about your story, so it would be great if you can tell us a bit about your journeys, your ups and downs. Share whatever amount you feel is appropriate and you're comfortable with.
I like to be an open book, so I don't mind sharing everything.
Mhm.
But I'll start back in high school, when I discovered graphic design. So we were in a media arts class, and my teacher at the time put a, this is how old I am, I'm going way back. My teacher put a cover of a magazine on an
Mhm.
overhead projector. So an overhead projector, you put a transparent sheet on top, and it projects it onto the thing. For those that don't know what overhead projector is, ancient piece of technology.
I'll put a Google picture of what an overhead projector looks like.
Yeah, put a Google picture. Yeah. Uh, so, and he had that on the screen on the projector, and just told us to discuss it amongst ourselves for a couple minutes. And I was like, okay, it's just a cover. And I was looking at some of the things, and I was just kind of okay, whatever. And then he kind of put the next slide up. He's like, did your eyes follow this, like this zigzag shape? Like, did your eyes go from here to here to here to here to here? I'm like, yeah, my hand, I put my hand up because my eyes did that. And he's like, yo, well, they designed it like that. They created it like that. And I was thinking about it on the way here. It's like, it's one of those situations. There's a lot of these, we call them aha moments in college, but I kind of reframed it. It's these moments that I find in my life where I turn a light on and I see what's in there and I
Mhm.
can't unsee it. So once I came across that visual, and I learned that someone had the ability to make me feel and make me look at things a particular way for a duration of time, I was automatically intrigued by it. And that's what started the journey for advertising and getting into graphic design and creativity. But interestingly enough, when I was the high school that I was in, I got kicked out of that high school for reasons I won't get into now. But it's one of those situations where I think it happened. It was one of those things that was supposed to happen, and I feel like it helped propel me uh, as an individual, removing me from that environment. Um, but the high school that I went to didn't really focus on creativity or art. It was more of an academic setting. So there's only me and one another gentleman, actually played a pretty important role in my life too. Actually, my buddy Nathan, he was an aspiring graphic designer. So it's only me and him out of the whole school that I want to
Mhm.
get into graphic design. So man, when I was 19, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I wasn't going to school yet because I knew I wanted to do something creatively. I didn't know what graphic design entailed. I didn't really know about it too much. But I was serving at the time at a Tex-Mex restaurant in Toronto. So I had to dress up like a cowboy, the cowboy hat, the belt buckle, the plaid shirt, the cowboy boots, and oh no, that's what we're gonna pull out a cowboy.
I've always wanted to be a Chinese cowboy. It's a strange fantasy.
Oh my, what are the chances of that? That's hilarious. That is hilarious. Oh my god, that made my day. Um, but yeah, I remember just sitting in my room holding like a wad of cash because I was just working all the time. Most of my friends were in college and university, kind of pursuing their studies, and I was just sitting there with a wad of cash. I'm like, I should feel happy. And this is like when I think the Xbox 360 came out, and I was like, I can buy that. I could buy a new computer. I felt empty inside. So I fell into a little bit of a depression because I felt lost and kind of hopeless. And one day I randomly decided to buy a bass guitar because one of the bands I was listening to that a friend recommended, I ended up falling in love with their music and their sound and everything. They're called Dance Gavin Dance. And I went out, bought a guitar. I was like, I could either continue to be depressed, or I could do something about it. So I just went to Steve's Music. I just kind of like, hey, I want to buy a guitar. He's like, what one do you want? I don't know. I want that one. I just bought an Ibanez bass guitar, and I remember on the bus ride home, I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, what is this? Like, I have a good what? I played guitar. I tried guitar before, but the whole idea of trying to play a chord with my hand, my fingers didn't make sense to me. but no word of a lie, like I got the bass and I picked it up, I put it on my lap, and it just felt like it felt so natural. And it turned out, it turned into, the bass acted as a pencil for me, when in the time in my life, right, I wasn't feeling particularly creative. So allow me to kind of unlock that sense of that creative side of myself once again.
This journey resonates a lot with me. When we first met, and I felt like we've known each other for years because we bonded over this notion that we both had gone through depression. So my story was I had ruptured an Achilles, um, and
Mhm.
it was such a freak accident. I was literally bending down to pick up a ball, and my Achilles just snapped.
Oh wow.
Um, and at that point in my life, I was actually training to participate in the Ontario Open badminton champion, competition.
Oh wow.
Um, Not to say I'm good, but I was training. I had a goal that I was aspiring to,
Yeah.
um, and at that point, I was like, um, and I and my dad a month later was diagnosed with lung cancer. My girlfriend dumped me at the same time,
Oh man.
and that was when I realized, and same type of realization is that feeling of emptiness
Hmm.
and just not being able to do anything um, about it. Uh, and at that point in my life, I was fairly quote unquote successful.
Yeah. Yeah.
I I was super. It was my second job coming out of university, and I was able to sign and purchase a house.
Oh my god.
Um, Not like outright. I paid the deposit,
Yeah.
so
Hmm.
I paid the deposit. um, but I did drive a BMW, so that was my first car.
Yeah.
Um, Entry level though.
Yeah.
uh, but it helped me realize that everything is so easily taken away, and none of that really
Hmm.
matters if you can't walk.
Yeah.
And my happiness was all based around whether or not I was able to walk. Like none of these things matter to me anymore,
Hmm.
and that's why I drive a Subaru now. my, and we were joking about this before we hit record. I call it the dad wagon, and I'm not even a dad yet, but I love that car. It's super fun to drive.
You know what's hilarious with that, about that too? So when I was in high school and I decided I wanted to be a graphic designer, the success that I was aiming for, I considered myself successful if I had a job doing graphic design or something creative. If I was, what was the last? If I own my own place downtown, that's off the table now. And
You,
or
you don't know what the housing market's going to be like next year.
you know what? The older I've gotten, I'm more into
Mm-hmm.
nature. I like being away from the crowds and the noise and all of that. When I was younger, I wanted to be around that, but and the third thing was a Mazda 3 hatchback. That to me
Oh,
is what meant that what
that's a
success
beautiful car.
meant.
No, I'm serious.
Only because I wanted a car that where I can a hatchback car where I can put my bass guitar in and my amp and all that kind of stuff. So I know I was always thinking that music is going to be a part of my life, which is pretty interesting.
How we define success is so important,
Hmm.
and uh, I feel like I'm the same way as well. Like when I was younger, I was like, oh, I want this. I want to have it all, and now it's just I don't mind
Hmm.
living a bit further away from the city, quieter life,
Hmm.
not so not so based with material goods.
Hmm.
But
Yep.
yeah, I totally agree that having a correct and sort of a good definition of success that's aligned with your personal self, rather than shoved down your throat by media, by your peers
Yeah.
or society. I think that's super important. Um, and it seems like one of the check marks are there. Your I would
Yeah.
say a
Yeah.
pretty good graphic designer. And recently, you made a very amazing and creative project come to life. So can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes. So I just finished, and we're talking about finishes in like I think a week and a half ago.
Wow.
I just finished creating a children's book. It's so crazy the journey of how that even came to be. My girlfriend at the time wanted some Instagram little drawings to post, and I just did a piece of a character kind of climbing these mountains that are
Mhm.
made out of pencils. Interestingly enough, is kind of symbolic to me, I guess. Creativity has a weird way of manifesting itself in my life sometimes. But and she recommended I just start thinking about doing a kids book of the little drawings that I did were what she thought was good. And I was just kind of like, ah, it's whatever. And we went to Ottawa, and on the ride back, I think it's a 4 or 5 hour train ride. I was over listening to music. I didn't want to be on my phone. My data was kind of going over the limit. So I'm like, let me just start sketching out the ideas for the book. And I started sketching out the pages and what I wanted it to look like. And it just started to flow. All the ideas just started to flow. And she bought me a photo album. And I used that as the mock-up for the book. So I drew all the mock-ups that I had from the sketchbook into the photo book. And then I superimposed
Mhm.
had like plastic sheets. So I'd color the plastic sheets with colors with markers just to kind of get a better idea of the style that I wanted. And it just kind of turned into that. And then I remember showing my nephew, I think it was that Christmas last year, um, just the rough of it. And he's like, just looking at him look through the book, it just hit
Mhm.
me. And it was at that moment, it's like what I said earlier, the light switch went on in my head is like, I have to do something with this.
Mhm.
I couldn't for me not to do anything with it would be a huge disservice, not only to myself but to my nephew.
This is such great sentiment, and you basically sold me on this idea just with that one sentence. We've been talking about this for a bit now, and it's such a powerful idea and vision that you have with this book, and I 100% behind it. Um, so this vision you have is to actually maybe you can probably articulate it better than me. Like, share with us your vision for this book. Like, what made you want to create it, or at this point now that you're about to launch, um, what's your uh, what do you want this book to achieve in the hands and I guess the lives of these young people that are going to be reading these books?
Yeah, it's interesting. Last February and this February, last 2 years, I think were the most time that it was the most amount of time I spent actually indulging in Black history,
Hmm.
um, and learning not about my parents are from St. Vincent. I was born and raised in Canada, but just trying to learn more about the the American side of it and how Canada played a role in that, and just being a person of color in those times, because with the internet and all that other stuff, it's crazy. Even I have this conversation with my buddy all the time, like the idea that my parents left a tiny island in the Caribbean with no Google. The only information they had was from a pamphlet,
Hmm.
maybe, and left all of that to come here to a country where it snows for 6 months out of the year. It's mind-boggling to me. So when I was indulging in that information, it like I said earlier, it just for some reason a light switch went on. And one of the things that really hit close to home with me was the fact that um, there was a lot of wealth and problems and things that could have been avoided if we not if we but a lot of things that could have been avoided if we had the knowledge and the information of the importance of owning something and creating something. And I think for me, like I said, it turned a light switch on in my mind. Is like I can continue to work for somebody or continue to put my effort into something else and not see that return, or I can put the extra time walking out into the unknown aspect of the world in my life and take something that I can then say, hey, you know what, Isaiah or Joshua, here's something that you guys can take and run with and do whatever you need to do. And you guys own it at the end of the day. Um, I think Damon Dash has been a huge inspiration for me in terms of coming to that understanding, because I think the important thing when it comes to like a mentor is not to tell you what to do, is but to get you to kind of meditate on things. And when I say meditate, I don't mean sit there and go, I meditate when I'm on the drive home. I just kind of think about things and just allow my mind to kind of um, come to different decisions and things like that. So for me, it's more important about, it was the important thing for me regarding the book and that journey with the book was instilling in myself and in my family and my friends the importance of being able to create something and have
Mhm.
something and own something.
And I think that's like this notion of being able to influence or pass that knowledge down. I think played a role in why I became an entrepreneur, and I'll share a bit of story, and I hope you can see a bit of that parallel. My parents came here just after I was born, and for 5 years of my life, I didn't even know I had a sister or parents. Well, like conceptually, I knew I had parents, but I've never seen them. Right? I was raised by my grandparents,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
and the and they came here with $100 US in their pockets and the two suitcases of clothing that and obviously the clothes they have down their back. Um, and my dad was smart enough to pay $20 American for a cab ride to get into the city. So now he's starting not with 100 but with 80 American.
Yeah.
And I always laugh at him about that, but that's a whole different story. And for them, they had to hustle. They had to be entrepreneurs. They had to figure out a way to create. They had a way to own something in order to make a living, to provide for my my sister and I, basically.
Hmm.
And at a very young age, that like I saw that, and it's kind of made me who I am. Right? My uncle owns a restaurant. He had a restaurant. He's retired now, so he's a he's a great guy, great cook. Um, but my aunt's a better cook, so but don't tell him that. They owned a restaurant on the Danforth. Um, my dad has been an entrepreneur since he was 13, like selling belts back in the day in China, and selling jeans. He would, uh, creatively acquire from outside, communist
Yeah.
country.
Yeah.
He'll creatively acquire genes and sell them to people in the city, and that was his hustle. Right, he would hop on trains back and forth to find his vendors and etc. etc. Um, he was a hustler in his entire life, and that's where I learned to be an entrepreneur and think of ways to generate value, contribute to society, and carve out a living for myself. And I think that's super important to being exposed to that is super important, because you can always take a job. You can, and not saying that taking a job is bad. I've maintained a full-time position up until April of this year, right? um, but having the ability and sort of the like being more wired to think in that particular way is a huge advantage to anyone. And kudos for you for trying to enable that in your family, in the people that will be touched by your book. Um, and I'm super excited to hear more about what this book is about. So can you tell us a bit about that and what the whole creative idea behind the packaging or the package itself?
Okay. Uh, so I'm a bit of a nerd. I on a Saturday night, I'd be at home watching what do you call it? Space documentaries. I I don't know. I've always been interested in space, and the idea of space just fascinates me. So what I've been able to do with the book is a big inspiration behind the book was a game called No Man's Sky.
Oh, shout out to No Man's Sky and its controversies.
Yeah, shout out to No Man's Sky. They played their it's crazy because they're the amount of it's a very ambitious game, and I respect them for even attempting to create something like that and actually creating it. It was a rocky start in the beginning when they released it, but whatever. The idea was there, and the fact that they put time and energy into it blew my mind away. So for me, it was the game, and a lot of the colors are based on that world. Um, so what I wanted to do with that was create a world where I can mesh, or a universe actually, not a world, a universe where I can mesh my love of space and creativity and art. One thing that art has allowed me to do, or I should say creativity, like I said with the bass guitar was a catalyst for me getting back into my creative endeavors. Um, so what art has allowed me to do is express certain things that I was experiencing that music couldn't allow me to experience, or words wouldn't allow me to experience. So with the music, for example, I played in a metal band. And for me, that was there's something about playing really heavy music that connected to something internally. I still to this day don't even know what it was, but it allowed me to express whatever that was through my music. And when I was going through the depression, I found that the music wasn't really allowing me to articulate that. So through art, I was able to kind of showcase and share with people something that I can illustrate visually, but wasn't able to communicate through words, whether me being insecure or worrying about people think about me or whatever. So I wanted to kind of create a world where we follow a character that kind of goes to different planets throughout the universe to help people or help different creatures and characters overcome their anxieties, whatever kind of mental health issues they might be dealing with. But on that note, I don't want to say the book is only about mental health. I think it's more about compassion and taking the time to kind of understand why somebody might react a certain way. So I think a lot of times, um, I think the world would be a better place if people kind of took a step back and tried to understand the why instead of just reacting to things.
No, I think that's an important concept to come across, and the in arming the next generation, and I think even adults sometimes
Yeah,
need lessons like this, um, to be able to reach across and learn about where they're coming from, and like you said, like react instead of reacting, because when you react, um, it it often can cross a threshold where there's no going back very very quickly.
yeah,
And kudos to you that you're trying to create a tool. I would even call it that, for people to learn how to um, how to equip themselves with that aspect in their life. Um, the you mentioned to art reflects a bit of your inner self. You can communicate with people visually what you can't communicate verbally with words. um, and I feel like this book is may also be an expression of some of the things you went through, um, or you've experienced or felt through your entrepreneurial journey. And a big part of it, for me at least, was fear, and that's part of why I held a full time position while I had a consulting job on the side as well. Don't tell any of my bosses before that. I had to work, crazy hours because I wanted that security, and I was afraid of losing that security. And when you know, the situation around the world forced me to lose that safety blanket, that's when I dove in, and doubled down, just double down on trying to make a go at this.
hmm
And
yep,
I've been very fortunate and I've been very blessed to be able to make this happen and realize and confront my fears. Um, did you have any fears and anxieties, going through this journey? Maybe one tell us one story about your fears and anxiety. I feel like
Oh my God.
about your fears and anxiety. I feel like the book will help you articulate it.
Oh my God. Man, there's so many. There's so many. There's just a lot of these aha moments. I can, okay, I'll say two pivotal moments that kind of made me stop in my tracks. So I did work a corporate-ish job. I was doing graphic design. Um, I loved what I was doing. I was doing photo manipulation, and I really loved what I was doing. I actually really enjoyed it. But I felt
Chad, can you make me look prettier?
I can. It's and that was the thing. Like I think what that job taught me was that like magic exists in not in the traditional sense, but in the sense that like I can take a chair and make it look like it actually existed in that space in reality. I'm just meshing the
Mhm.
two worlds together. So for me, as much as I loved what I was doing, I felt like I was missing something. I had the financial, I
Mhm.
was making money, um, but I felt empty inside. I couldn't get out of bed. I was depressed going to work, so that affected my productivity, and I just wasn't there mentally. So for me, that was something where I decided I need to see if there's something else that I can do. And funny enough, at that time, I think I was still with a modeling agency
Mhm.
when I had the job, and my agent at the time sent me a text message. It still blows my mind still that it was a text message. She sent me a text message saying, "Hey, do you want to be in this music video with
Mhm.
Billy Talent?" And I remember looking at the phone. I'm like, "But you're gonna need these 3 days off." I pulled my supervisor aside, and God bless her. She was an amazing supervisor, and I think about her in terms of my entrepreneurial journey. I think about her a lot in the sense of some of the advice that she gave me. But I pulled her aside, and I was like, "Hey, look, like I have an opportunity to do this once in a lifetime music video, and like I need these 3 days off. So either I'm going to take the 3 days off, or I'm not going to come in those 3 days." I was willing to roll the dice on it because I didn't know where that would propel me. And she's like, "Okay, take 3 days off." I was like, "Okay, cool. Wow, that went better than I expected." But I remember being in that space, and it wasn't what I expected it to be in the sense that I thoroughly enjoyed all of these people coming together to create something that lasted 3 minutes. And this was over 3 days. It was for me, it's like it blew my mind how many people came together to make something so small. And being around that creative energy and just being around that like that hustle and flow kind of environment definitely played a role in my decision not to go back. But my contract ended. Eventually ended up going back, but then it's just like because I felt scared. I was afraid. I'm like, I need that security. And it just same thing happened again. So I'm like, okay, like what am I gonna do now? My contract ended, and I just decided to kind of jump into what I'm doing now. But to be completely honest, I didn't really jump into it. With everything that I've done, the music, the acting, and all that kind of stuff, the design and graphic design stuff is always in the back of my head. I For the years I've gone by, I always had it. I'd always be like drawing, or I'd have like artwork or whatever, but I didn't fully commit to it. And for some strange reason, I found that the closer I got to using my art to express what I was going through internally, that's when I call it the monkey mind. My mind would start to kind of play tricks on me in the sense that I'd be super insecure. I'd have no problem crying on camera or like crying for a scene or something like that. But when it came to me sharing my artwork, I'd be very like, "Ugh," like I don't know if I can do that. I could jump out of a plane. I've been skydiving 3 times, but I'd be afraid of sharing my artwork. So for me, that was a point where I was like, there's something here, and it took me all of my 20s to get to the realization that that something was where I should have been. and something was what I should have been focusing on.
To be quite honest, I have no idea how these podcasts would go. I'm I'm super insecure about myself as well, but I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I have a lot to contribute, and it took me a better part of this entire year to get around to doing this. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I completely hear you on the insecurity and the fear to start. But now having started it and having come along this way, um, how do you feel now? Like, how would you sort of assessing your situation now? How do you feel, and what commentary would you give?
I was talking to my girlfriend about this. I feel like I've stepped into who I am. Um, a lot. I've had different projects in the past, and I think the other story was the fact that I played a show at the Mod Club, and I had like a clothing line, like a little. I had a clothing line at the time, and had a little shop set up in the back. I remember walking through the crowd in the Mod Club, and I felt nothing, absolutely nothing. So it was like I'm doing what I like to do, but for some reason it's not connecting internally. So when I look at my life now with what I'm doing in terms of graphic design and helping the people that I know in my life through whatever means that I can, especially with the book, I find that now I've kind of connected the pieces to who I am and my purpose on the earth. Um, yeah, it's bigger than me. I've been able to see something that's bigger than me, and I'm walking closer and closer to that. And this, when I think about this year in general as well, it's been a blessing.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I feel like on our first call, we basically like ex- confessed our love for each other on the phone. On this one point,
Yeah, essentially, yeah, 100%. I felt like I knew you.
and I feel the same way, where I feel more authentic to myself now that I'm doing this podcast, now that I'm meeting more small business owners and helping them through their marketing and their advertising. Um, is It feels more natural to me,
Yeah.
because when I it's strange, but when I'm talking to you, when I'm helping people like you who are stuck in their business, I almost have this cathartic feeling of helping my dad, helping my uncle.
Mm,
When I was younger, I couldn't help them with their businesses. Um, I didn't
mm,
know how to run a business. I don't know, uh, how to navigate the business world. But now that I've gone through, 12 years in in ad agencies and handling large accounts and etc., I'm more equipped to. I don't have all the answers, but I'm more equipped to help people, and that's what I want to do. That's and finding that and connect and doing that now. Um, it just felt like I've just been delaying this entire time, giving into that fear, giving into those insecurities. I may not be the best looker, but I can definitely help with advertising and marketing. um, and I feel one thing that we really connected on that call is just being able to give back to people. Like, um,
mhm.
where I you are a you come across as a very uh, authentic and grateful person for your circumstances and what you've where your situation in life currently, and I really appreciate
Thank
that.
you. Appreciate you saying that.
Uh, and being as you are, you want to give back to people and help, like you said, help those people in your life in whatever way you can. Help the artists around you. So I know you're working on a little bit of an initiative. Do you want to plug that now and see if other people would want to connect with you?
Uh, oh,
Yeah.
the art initiative. So that's something that I was thinking about. So in the beginning of this year, I like to call this year like a Twilight episode, as my buddy Nathan said. It's like a Twilight episode that's badly written or poorly written, excuse me. But um, the space that I'm in right now, we're in an office space. We moved into this office space. Like my buddy, I went over to my buddy's house. Um, it's so crazy how the world works sometimes. He's like, "Hey, I'm thinking about renting another office space because we were in another office space last year." And we found this space. He's just flipping through the pictures. Where you want to check it out tomorrow? I'm like, okay, I'm not signing anything. We could check it out. Um, long story short, I think a couple of days later, he's like, "Yo, we're gonna move in there. We're like, we're gonna sign it. We're gonna sign up. Are you down?" I'm like, I threw my phone, I hid my phone, because I'm like, I need time to think about this. And I'm like, you know what, dude? I'm scared. I don't know if I'm gonna cover how I'm gonna be able to cover the rent, but I'm gonna do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. January, February, we moved in. Coronavirus hit.
Wow.
So we were all like, what's gonna happen? I came here every single day. My window faces the 400. So usually there's a hum, it's cars constantly. The first couple of weeks of February, or was it the mid-February, one or two cars would be on the highway, and it's just eerie feeling because I can see. I don't have a clock in my office anymore, so I'd be on the computer doing my work, and I can tell when it's like rush hour. But like at rush hour, to be 4 or 5 cars instead of the average of 2 or 3. So for me, it's such a very airy feeling. But I was forced to figure out, like, what am I going to do? How am I going to set myself up for not now, but for the future? So I decided, instead of drop shipping, sending artwork off to somewhere else, why not just get a printer so I can start doing my own printing? And funny enough, the printer paid for itself within, I think, 2 or 3 jobs. So I was fortunate enough to kind of do that. So what I'm trying to do with the initiative is, I know plenty of artists, and one of them is a graphic designer, or illustrator, I should say, Jaden. She actually helped me bring my book to life. She did all the coloring for me. So, and I'll get to her in a second. But what I wanted to do is provide artists with somewhere where they can print all their work without having to deal with the shipping and figuring out the website stuff, and just make it easier for them to kind of get their artwork out while they're still making a bit of money. So that's something I'm looking at starting in the new year. It's called So Indifferent Community, where I just kind of help artists sell their artwork, and I help them create like little motion graphic adverts that they can share, so they can kind of get the word out with their
That
artwork.
sounds awesome. And you and I spoke privately about this, so let's make it public. Rising tides, man. Like, it's not a zero-sum game. Um, one graphic artist getting a job doesn't mean you're not going to get a job. There's definitely enough work out there, and and when we come together, when we help each other out, that's when everyone can win. Um, I work with even a few people in the same space. They're freelance advertisers, basically, and we just basically pass jobs around to each other. It's like, oh, I don't really want to do this, you do it, that type of thing.
And that's the interesting thing. I think one thing I've noticed during the last couple months, especially this year, is so important to things started to really make sense and connect once I stopped thinking about myself. Once I started thinking about other people, I started to make more money. I started thinking about ways I can add value to people, because I brought the same mentality being in the service industry. I was a bartender and server for all throughout my 20s, and that allowed me to kind of run my own little business within a business, if that makes sense. I get a section of like 8 or 9 tables, whatever, let's say 4 or 5 tables. I can choose how I want to interact with those tables and how I want to make their experience. So for me, if I'm really enjoying the interaction with the table, the children are being super polite and the parents are being super polite, I'd buy them dessert with my own money, or I'd buy somebody a drink. So for them, it's like, oh my God, you don't have to do that. I'm like, it's fine. You guys were amazing. Da 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 da. An interesting thing happened. People would come back. So I'd have my coworkers at the time be like, why would you spend money on buying these people a drink? I'm like, I'm not thinking about right now. I'm thinking long term. So when these people come in, I had people call in and say, "Hey, Stallion working?" Oh yeah, my name was Stallion at the time. Oh, whatever. Is Stallion working? Okay, cool. Can we have a table for him at 5? Oh, if he's not in today. Okay, we'll come in. Can you let us know when he's in next? And it's like I just set myself up for an extra 20-30% tip in the future. And that was something that I think I have to like. I'm so grateful that I was in the service industry because it taught me to think about things from a different perspective. I never aimed at getting 15%. I'm like, no, I want more than that. What can I do to get 30%? And there's been days when I go in, it'd been a slow day, and people on average would be making, "Hey, I only made this much." I'm like, "Oh, I made that much too." Yeah, it's very slow. When I'd be walking out with double, triple, quadruple what they made, just because I had a different perspective on it.
That's awesome. So Chad
Mhm.
Stallion, how can people find you? How can they connect with you? And when your book
Oh my
launches,
God.
when the community launches, how can people get in touch with you?
It's hilarious. You can check out my website, www.soindifferent.com, or you can follow me on Instagram at soindifferent underscore, or Facebook, just Chad Hopson. And I'm more than willing to connect with people. So yeah.
I'll include everything on the description down below. And it was wonderful chatting with you. Before we leave, I'm going to start asking
Yes.
every one of my guests this one question. Knowing what you know now, what's one advice that you would give yourself, the version of yourself that was just starting out on this entrepreneurial journey?
There's nothing wrong with failing. You're either learning or succeeding.
I've had my fair share of failures. And like you said, I genuinely learned the biggest and most important lessons from those failures.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're just kind of, they're no longer quote unquote failures in my life as people would define them. They're now just a part of my learning journey, like you said. Yeah. So
And if I might add one more thing, is I think the most important thing is have definitions for words in your life. I think, like for me, for example, an adult doesn't mean what adult means to the rest of society. Success doesn't mean what success means to the rest of society. Failure to me doesn't mean failure, like the same failure what other people might think of it as. I found that defining the words that I use in my life has played a tremendous role to keep me going.
thank you so much for your stories, and thank you for your quotes at the end.
Thank you for
Uh,
having me.
I'd love to have you back, so let's chat about that.
100%.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye. Thank you.
Hi, Brian here. I really enjoyed my conversation with Chad, and he's clearly a very talented creative. The first thing that struck me when I met him was how grateful he is, how generous he is, um, and the way he approaches philosophically things in life. And it deeply resonated with me, and I think we've developed a bond and a friendship almost immediately. And I'm so excited for his new project, The Fear Theory. Details and where you can pick this up in the description box below. I'm also really happy to invite him back onto the show in a couple of weeks to discuss on how to approach problem solving and entrepreneurship, things that you encounter as a small business owner, entrepreneur, from a creative standpoint. What I've found in the past is that it's interesting how I approach problem solving versus some of my friends that are a bit more on the creative side. So stay tuned for that. Please like and comment and subscribe. It'll help me grow the channel and get the content out to more people. Hit the notification bell so YouTube alerts you when Chad's next episode comes out. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned.